because you then really do go to the war zone, and when you go to Cyprus, then I mean things are bad there, aren't they? This is the period of Makarios, isn't it? And
yes, exactly.
Very tough times, and things going on around you, because you went back to Israel at the age of 18 and into the army there, I think, and this was. You were injured then, weren't you, in the 6-Day War? Am I right? Injured in the 6-Day War, and but this was the time your ambition, I believe, am I right, was to be a spy?
Yes.
You wanted to work for Mossad, for the Israeli intelligence agency.
I wanted to work for Mossad because already in Cyprus, where I lived, I was a Mossad messenger. When I say Mossad messenger, we owned a tiny bread and breakfast establishment. When my stepfather died, my mother and I ran this 12-room little pension. And Israeli Mossad agents would dwell there. And one of them asked me to help him while he was away spying somewhere in Egypt or Jordan, wherever. He would send me letters which had top secret material in them. And he instructed me to get on my bike, cycle to the Israeli embassy or consulate, and hand it to the ambassador or to the consul. So I felt like a little spy. I was only 13 or 14. And Yoav, his name was Yoav, this spy, Yoav Shacham, told me that when I go back to Israel to find him, he told me, join the paratroopers, go to officers' school, and then find me. And I knew that I had a ticket into the Mossad. So you're right.
Your Mossad friend died, didn't he? Did he die?
Yeah, while I was in the middle of officers' school, in the middle, I wake up in the morning and I open the paper and there was a headline there, Yoav Shacham dies. He got a bullet through his helmet, died. And that totally devastated me. And I had no more energy to even complete officers' school, and I left.
So here you are, you've got these abilities. I mean, so far they're not really shaped into anything. I mean, that things have happened, strange things have happened, this has happened, but it's really now, after you've been injured, you become a camp counselor and you're working with children. And there you meet someone who's going to, who in fact, I've just met about half an hour ago. This is, in fact, Shippy, who is now your brother-in-law, but then was 13 or 14 years old, something like that.
What happened is, wounded soldiers, I was wounded in both arms, and I had a cast, and so they send you to recuperations, but mainly to places called Kaitana, where the young soldiers can kind of teach youngsters to ideologically and to go into a combat unit and so on. And when I met Shippy in that camp, his sister came to visit him, Hannah, who you also met out there.
Yes, your
and
wife
I loved
for
her.
many
I
years.
liked her immediately then. And to make a long story short, I used to demonstrate my powers to the kids. And then Shippy was so excited about my powers that he always wanted me to demonstrate in his school to the teachers and to the kids. And he arranged my first show. I think
so
he was
really,
14
in a way,
or 15.
he's also the first producer in a way.
Absolutely, he did my first show. There I was standing in front of, in the schoolyard with the teachers watching me and the kids. And I was amazed how everyone was astonished by relatively trivial demonstrations of mind power.
You get the act together. You get the act together, and then you start doing sort of shows. You start doing things in Israel. I think there's one moment. I think this perhaps really sort of propels you to the first bit of fame. It's the premonition that occurs. It's on television, isn't it? Tell me about that.
No, it was a show in a small theater.
Oh, it was in a theater. Sorry,
Safta.
Yeah.
And I was a huge kind of superstar in Israel. Nobody knew about Uri Geller out of the borders of Israel. But people stood in lines to see my show. And then I was booked into this small theater in Tel Aviv. And suddenly, on the stage, something overpowered me. And I knew that Gamal Abdul Nasser died. And I stopped the show And I looked at everyone in the theater and I said, Nasser is dead. I heard a, from 300 people, there was a gasp. And then I said, oh my, what did I do? I just destroyed my career. What did I do? Why did I say this? And when the people left the theater, I think 10, 20, 30 minutes later, they announced it, that Nasser died.
Somebody said to Golda Meir, what's the next year going to be like? And she says, ask Uri Geller, didn't she? And so
Golda Meir made Uri Geller. She started my career.
we want to just race on because we've been talking so, but you get subjected to an enormous number of tests. I mean, there was the meeting with the rather strange man Puharich,
Yes.
who was a very respectable scientist and sort of later in life went into believing in sort of a lot of stories about UFOs and so on, which I think you got a bit caught up with this, didn't you?
Absolutely.
But are you a bit sorry about that episode? Because,
no.
although he was a good scientist, towards the end, he did have some potty notions, some slightly daft notions towards the end of his life, which you didn't really believe in, did you?
No, that's not true. Now, I respected his theories and his belief systems to the day he died. But let me explain. You see, the CIA in 1970 were getting information from the Russians that they were studying people like me. So they got Puharich, who had links to the CIA, and he was into the research of the paranormal, to come and test me whether I'm real or not. And he saw me in a nightclub in Jaffa, and he calls me to the table and he says to me, Uri, I watched you. Now, any magician can do what you do, but I mean, is this real? I said, yeah, of course it's real. He said, I want to test you. And who are you? He said, look, I'm Dr. Puharich, blah, blah, blah. I'm from the CIA. And the CIA want to invite you to America to test you. When I say CIA, it was American Defense Department. So he tested me. And
a lot of tests, right?
Lots of tests. He rented a small flat in Herzliya, a suburb of Tel Aviv. And during these tests and demonstrations that I did for him, very weird and bizarre, to say the least, things happened that led me to believe that there were outside forces involved. Now, Andrea wanted to believe that there were that there was some type of an extraterrestrial civilization trying to contact me and so on.
Do you believe that?
Of course I believed. How can I not believe? When
you believed it
I
then?
was 20.
Oh no, you believed it then. You believed it then, yes.
I absolutely believed it then, because I suspected him. And I remember me tearing up his tape recorder from which these voices came, because I thought that it was a trick tape recorder, and he was tricking me, he was hypnotizing me. But it wasn't a trick tape recorder. It was genuine. So I truly believed that there was something extraterrestrial involved. And then he wrote his infamous book called Uri, the Journal of Mysteries of Uri Geller. It was such a controversial book that Andrea was booed off in somewhere.
Because that's your trouble, isn't it? Because you do get all sorts of nutters, really,
Andrea
don't you?
Puharich was not a nutter.
No, I'm not saying
he was a credible doctor who believed in the paranormal and believed that there is life out there. Now, if you ask me today, Uri, do you believe in the UFOs? My answer will be, of course. Did you ever see an alien? No. But because I didn't see an alien, that doesn't mean that there's no extraterrestrial life out there. For goodness sake, we could not be alone in the vast universe, Laurie.
But that's a bit different. That's a scientific proposition, but the idea that there are extraterrestrial beings contacting us and talking to us is a little bit more far-fetched.
When he wrote his book, Uri, it was so super controversial that I was being attacked. The skeptics grabbed that angle, and they said, oh, look, Uri is trying to say that his powers are coming from Hoover and Spectra, etc., etc.
But you know yourself there. Let's leave him aside, but you must get fed up with being associated with all sorts of nutters and cranks. You talked before about papers that are full nowadays of psychics and people who can do that. You must look at that and think, dear, oh dear, I don't want to be associated with this crowd at all.
Laurie, when you say that there's so many cranks out there, I get 300 emails a day. 300 emails a day, and I try to answer them all. Yes, some of them come from kind of cranks and crazy people. paranoids and schizophrenics. I get that. But because there are so many psychics out there, it's not my role to discount them or say she's real or she's not. I don't know. They do their stuff. I do my work. So I don't understand your question about being attracted or attached to cranks out there. I don't get you.
Don't you? Well, I mean, there are frauds out there. There are people who are taking money from innocent, gullible human beings as they claim to have special powers. That's what I mean by
There is
cranks
no
and fraud.
doubt in my mind that there are tens of thousands of so-called psychics who do all kinds of tarot readings and coffee readings and so on, who gullible people believe in, and they charge money for their services. But having said that, you know, there are also charlatans who claim that they're healers. Philippine, healers who go in with their hands and pull out tumors, cancerous tumors. Those tumors were basically chicken liver that they bought a day before in the market.
You know how the tricks are done.
I read enough about it and I saw enough television shows. But, when a doctor tells you, I'm sorry, I can't do anything for you anymore, you have 6 months to live or a year to live, that desperate person would try anything. And sometimes the placebo effect does kick in. Many a time, and you know that, it's proven,
sure.
if that person believes that this surgeon, psychic surgeon, pulled the tumor out of them, maybe that gave them another 2 or 3 months to live.
You see, this is very close to what I wanted to ask you. You see, when you watch someone like, say, a friend of yours, David Blaine, or you watch somebody like that on television, or you watch, I don't know, Penn and Teller or whatever, and you watch them, and you've lived in this world. I mean, you've got this hugely successful television show in which a lot of the acts are about mystification of various sorts,
Yes.
and some of them, which you admit, may be about magic rather than about sort of the paranormal.
I don't admit, I said I
Well,
don't
all right.
know.
Well,
I don't know and I don't want to know.
Okay, well, you don't want to know. But when you watch somebody like Penn and Teller or David Blaine, do you watch and say, I know what's going on there? Because these are people who are happy to be called magicians. You see, unlike yourself. Do you watch them and say, I see how you did that. I know where the coin's gone. That's what you did there.
You see, Laurie, this is a great question because the answer is, I don't. And do you know why I don't know how they do it? Because I'm not a magician. I never was. I never read a magic book. The only magic show I've ever seen in my life was because I missed the plane in Las Vegas and I went to see Siegfried and Roy with their white tigers. I'm not a magician.